All right, thank you guys for listening to Remake Rewind by MDXpods. This is episode 6, and we're going to be discussing Robocop. So, unfortunately, this week, Xavier is still having some stuff he needs to take care of outside of the podcast, so we want to do something a little special, and we got a couple of guest stars. So I'd like to introduce Joe Medina. Joe, how are you doing, Joe?
Hey, how's it going?
And we've got David, a.k.a. Double D. How you doing, Double D?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. So,
yeah, Mike as well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are welcome, Joe. And with us, as always, Dustin. How you doing, Dustin?
Hey, I'm doing well. We also have Joe Medina. We forgot his alias, which is Dr. Baby JJ.
Oh, yeah, that's
Dr. Baby
I go
JJ,
by
that's
Dr.
new for
Baby
me.
JJ.
In Spanish, it's baby
Yeah,
yeye.
because I attended Dr. Baby School.
Dr. Baby School. Excellent. All right, guys. So I'm excited about this one. I think this one's going to be as good, if not better, than our Point Break episode.
Our magnum opus.
Our magnum
Point Break.
opus.
It was a good episode, for sure.
Oh, it was a lot of fun to make that one. No, I agree. I think RoboCop's going to be a lot of fun. I actually had a great time watching both of these movies.
Oh, me too.
I hadn't checked into the 1987 RoboCop in some years, and I walked away with a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. The one that really stood out to me, which before we get into all the criteria and stuff, was how this movie launched like a toy line, and like I think there was a cartoon.
Oh, it was
there was
big.
a
And, like,
cartoon, video
was.
games, comic
Yeah,
books.
like, dude, this was from a time when a hard R-rated movie could spawn a lot of shit aimed at children.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true, yeah.
A lot.
Absolutely. So the big part of why we asked Double D's a huge RoboCop fan. So
Huge fan. I'm wearing a RoboCop t-shirt right now.
we expect you to fucking deliver, bro. Like, we want some
yeah.
expert
I'm
analyses.
here to talk, man.
Okay, good.
RoboCop is my life.
And Joe, we just expect amazing one-liners and just perfect
I'll try to
comedic
keep it
timing.
light.
I don't care if this is your first podcast. Good. All right, so like Dustin said, we always have some criteria. What do you guys think we should be discussing? Double D, I want you to pick the first topic. What should we be discussing when dissecting these two movies?
I mean, when you think about RoboCop, you're thinking about a big robot cop, so we're definitely got to go over character design.
Perfect.
We're
I
thinking
agree.
about a RoboCop.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Good summation
Indeed.
there.
And then I think we need to break down Detroit in general, because these are two very different Detroits of the future.
Motown.
Motown. And what else do you
Future
guys
Delta
think?
City right there, man.
I mean, I think the themes are pretty different
Yeah,
in
definitely.
both of these movies.
Yes, they're
as
both
well.
supposed to be satires, so we should definitely talk about, what they're talking
that
about
for
there.
sure. And they also take two radically different approaches to how one would create a RoboCop.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like the original one, you gotta. Well, should we just jump into the
let's
RoboCops?
do it.
And
Yeah,
jump into the
let's
RoboCops.
talk to. Well, let's break down the
so-
plot initially first. That's ways for people who haven't seen the movie or have seen it but didn't want to rewatch it for the podcast. We'll just go through it really quickly. Alex Murphy is transfers to the Detroit Police Department, which is run by it's Omnicorp initially, right?
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
OCP yet,
Yeah.
right? OCP's
well,
later.
like OCP buys the cops at a
Right.
point in this movie.
Yeah.
They acquire the police force becomes privately owned throughout this movie.
So
It's pretty much right at the beginning.
yeah, so OCP, Omnicorp own the Detroit Police Department, and they're about to go on strike because, holy shit, this Detroit is fucking scary as all hell.
Cops keep getting killed at an alarming rate. Like, the opening scene is a news broadcast where the newscaster announces that Clarence Boddicker, like that 70s drug lord
All right,
guy,
give it just a second.
is wanted. He's wanted in connection to the deaths of 31
he's like really good at that.
31 police officers.
And that's
yeah,
just
it's
police
insane.
officers. Like, that's not even
I don't
other
think he's-
criminals or innocent
I think
people.
he's just doing it
that's
to
just
cops,
cops.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
think he's
think
just
other
like,
people just get
are
a
you a
pass?
cop?
He's
Oh,
like,
yeah, he
after
mentioned
cops.
it. Well, no, because he killed Bobby.
Well,
at the
yeah,
very
but he
beginning
just
of the
wanted to
movie.
see if he could fly. He was
that
he's
Bobby's
actually
not a
just
cop.
more of a man of science.
That's true.
He just
did
wanted to
just,
see.
like,
He asked him.
Bobby had probably been running his mouth a lot about, oh, dude, I could fly. You guys, I could totally fly.
Yeah.
And I think that
And
was
he wanted to
probably
see.
it.
He wanted to see.
He really called
so
him out.
that's more of just he's a man of science.
So Alex Murphy, first day at this police precinct,
And he
gets
proceeds
partnered
to
up
have
with
the
Officer
worst
Lewis,
first day
and
ever.
worst first day of a job ever. So first stop, they go after Bodeker, played by Kurtwood Smith, the dad in That 70s Show. And he delivers even better one-liners in this than he does in That 70s Show. And I think he's great at that.
I would say that's pretty accurate.
Basically, they have like a car chase, and they stop off this crazy like chemical factory plant. And they proceed to just torture Alex Murphy. They blow off his hand. They shoot him with like 100 different shotgun shells.
Well, you're forgetting that his partner,
crazy.
Ann Lewis, would have been there to help him had she not been distracted by that one guy's dick.
So the black, like,
What,
She
with
straight
with
looks
her
at him
in the
human
face.
strength,
he cracked her in the
and
face.
knocked her clear from the balcony. He hit her.
So-
he hit her
I
with-
wonder what he
his
hit her with.
hand. He punched her.
Yeah, he
off
did.
The
He like
balcony,
just punched her.
and she
Well, that's
survived.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's knocked out,
Too
and
little,
she's
too late
she
for
comes
old
back
Murphy.
too late. So what ends up happening is at the same time going on, there's a boardroom scene where Dick Jones, who's like number 2 at like OCP, is
OCP.
debuting his Ed 209 like Walker robot, which he wants to be the new police force, and it fucking lights up an intern named
Oh,
Kenny,
I thought he was a.
Yeah,
which
well,
is a crazy
you know.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seemed important.
No. They were talking about it in the elevator. They were bringing him in. This was like his first time going to the boardroom, and he was like, "Is this normal for me to be going here? Like, should I be coming?"
That's why we brought you, David. You remember that accurately. So he gives this like intern, maybe not an intern, but like a young executive,
A
like
real
a gun, and
up-and-comer.
tells him to threaten Ed 209. And it malfunctions and lights him up, like shoots him not just like once to put him down, but like unloads hundreds of high caliber rounds into this guy's chest.
Does it? I
And
don't know. I feel like
nobody
that's the
reacts.
point of the Ed 209s is to just wipe people out. Like,
Yeah, dude.
like throughout
Have
this
you-
movie, they just unleash a hail of gunfire every
am
time.
I
There's no
It's
also-
insane.
precision to Ed
And what
209.
what's even crazier
Wait,
is
am I also to assume?
Go ahead,
I'm
Joe.
assuming that they don't test these things at all. Like there's no prior testing to. It's like people put
no,
it
they-
together. Like, yeah, it should work. It's gonna be fine. We don't need to test it. Just go. Yeah, send it to the meeting. It's ready.
Send it to the
Look,
meeting.
apparently they did test it, but what's crazy is the reactions in the room were too extreme. So one guy, like, this guy's clearly dead. Nobody's going to survive this. Although Alex Murphy did survive getting shot in the head and all that stuff, at least initially, because they did bring him to the hospital and try to revive him. But in this scene, this guy's clearly dead. So this guy's clearly dead, and you've got a couple people like, call the ambulance, call the paramedics. And then you have the CEO, who's only called the old man. He doesn't have a name. And he just looks at Dick Jones and he's like, I'm very disappointed. He's not upset that he's seen some guy get brutally murdered, presumably going to be a multi-million-dollar settlement.
Yeah, and
He's just
someone calls for the
disappointed.
paramedics.
It is very disappointing.
So-
Kenny
He
was,
just,
a,
like-
Kenny was
someone-
a promising young executive. He had his whole life ahead of him. You know,
So he
just
stands
bought
up
a
and he
house.
just starts walking away, and he sighs, and he's just like, "I'm very disappointed."
Yeah. So
It was just
at
nothing
that
to him.
point, I can't remember this executive's name, but there's this other like hotshot executive who has the idea for RoboCop. So he pitches it right then and there, like, Ed 209 sucks. I've got like a RoboCop that I want to build. And the old man's like, you've got 20 minutes to give me a presentation. And so it cuts back to Alex Murphy. He's in the hospital. They're trying to resuscitate him. They end up calling it. They turn him into RoboCop. And we'll get into the RoboCop stuff more specifically in a bit. He goes and RoboCops around the city for like quite a bit of the movie. And eventually he figures out that he was a human named Alex Murphy. He starts solving his own murder. He goes after Bodeker. There's a really badass, final action sequence, and the movie ends. So that's it in a nutshell. We'll get into more detail. Let's just dive into RoboCop himself. Double D, what's your expert analysis on RoboCop himself?
We're talking about original RoboCop, right? Original RoboCop. So, I mean, the thing I liked about this RoboCop, the original RoboCop, was that it was fully made just for Alex Murphy to become a cyborg. So, like, they go through that scene of where they're changing him into RoboCop, and they're talking about how he's dead and how he's OCP property, where they decided to leave his arm on.
Well, no, they're excited
then,
that they saved the arm. You know, they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we saved it."
No, we don't need this.
And then
No,
Bob comes in,
Yeah,
the
Bob's like,
board member.
What
Yeah,
is this? Hand.
Total prosthesis.
exactly.
Total
Yeah,
prosthesis.
Yeah, total prosthesis.
lose
yeah.
it.
Lose the
Lose the
arm.
arm.
Fuck
Lose it.
him.
It was great, but
And he doesn't. He doesn't even have his brain, right? Like it's just his like face.
No, he doesn't
'cause-
really have his full brain. It's just like his face is draped over a robot fucking
it's just
skull. And it's like they also
stretched
wipe his
over.
mind. And like honestly, like when I was comparing the two, like it does seem like more humane in the original to wipe his memories. And
I guess, but why even have
like, they
the
don't
human
explain that.
element
It's just
to
like
it if
Bob
they
was
went
like,
as far
yeah,
as they
what if they're
did?
human?
I don't
'Cause-
know.
Well, they wipe his brain, so like, why
Tell
even
you,
have a
dude.
human? So that part we'll get into. We'll get into like the second RoboCop, but part of it makes more sense. But I agree with Dustin that this is kind of more humane in the fact that they're trying to make him not human at all.
Like
but-
they didn't do a very good job of making him all robot. Like his memories ultimately do seep in, you know, and his humanity is restored. But I think that's kind of at least trying to turn him totally into a RoboCop is way more humane than in the other one where they're like, "Oh yeah, you're Alex
you saved
Murphy,
your
man.
hand."
No, everything's really good.
Right.
You still
So-
have a family and a job, and you're."
So this RoboCop is basically like a robot that develops some humanity later.
You know,
and
I
even
also
when he
think,
develops,
or go ahead. Finish what you're
so
doing.
basically he's a robot. He's governed by
There's always a secret.
presumably 3 directives, but we find out at the end there's a secret 4th directive. So it's very much like the Isaac Asimov, whatever, like the 3 laws
Asimov.
of robotics. Yeah, it's kind of like that where he's got 3 things that he's governed by, and then there's a secret 4th one at the end. It turns out he can't go after any OCP Omnicorp leadership. So he's very much a robot, and he develops humanity later. And so it's very interesting. One of the things I thought was kind of weird, and it kind of bothered me watching actually, was his display, like his heads-up display, is lower resolution than like the human eye. Like it shows like that bothered me.
So
like,
many problems.
Why not
with that,
just
man.
use a camera and then just put like electronic HUD, like the green lines over
It
like the
did
camera
not
they're
look
using
like
for the
it
rest of the
helped
movie?
at
Like
all.
why is it like pixelated and worse than what humans can see? Like
I don't know.
that
I
didn't
think it
make
was to
sense to
just be. It was just trying to be stylish. Like I think the original Terminator and even maybe Terminator 2 were kind of similar, right? Like the Terminator view was like weird, like
Well, it
wasn't
was
like
red.
and black
It was
tones or something.
It was
like
red,
that.
but it
Like,
still looked normal. Like it was like infrared, but so it was like red and black, but you could still see sharp. Like this was just kind of
Yeah.
blurry, like a foggy mirror. Like I don't get
It was
why.
just like a tube television. Like
yeah, I
they
don't
just
get why
put a
like
tube TV in the visor.
from a style standpoint. Like why not just use a regular camera and just put the overlay on it so it doesn't look like he's got a disadvantage to regular humans. Other than that, like he was very robotic, very clunky. The way
I like the way
moved.
he moved. He moved a lot cooler in this one. Like I liked that. Like every movement was very deliberate and predetermined and kind of thought
I
out.
don't know.
It was great acting at being
These
a
are
machine.
the effects that they have. So I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Also, it was like a big, chunky RoboCop costume,
Yeah.
like compared to the other film, right? Like it's not sleek; it's heavily armored.
I definitely think that Peter Weller was perfect for this, just because like how big he's a really skinny guy with a huge head, and
he's got the head for it.
he's got it. So it
definitely
made
does.
sense because like having such a skinny guy, being able to put all these costumes on him, and then all the weird hardware he'd have to put, like it made it a lot easier to hide it and make it look like it's not disproportionate.
Oh yeah,
because his head's so much larger than the rest of his body.
Totally. Also, the scene where like he appears at the shooting range, like when he first kind of makes his presence known to the rest of the cops, and like you're hearing like his gun is like super loud and shooting like the 3-shot bursts, and it's like fucking dead on target every time. Like
You know what
that was pretty imposing. I thought
he
it was
was
cool.
dead on and everything. Like he was really good with his gun, and like that scene when he goes to take on Clarence Boddicker in like the Coke factory, and like he's like firing behind his back and flipping it around and shooting it all over. Like he's just standing in the room and taking people off like all the different balconies and stuff. That was really cool. What I didn't really like about this RoboCop is they mentioned that he's got like a Kevlar titanium weave armor, and they mentioned like I don't think they mentioned like what caliber can hurt him like they did in the newer movie. But what
They
kind of bothered me is
like anti-tank. Yeah.
yeah. So later on, they do just get like anti-tank ammo later.
Yeah.
But what kind of bothered me about this is this RoboCop was not tactical at all. Like, he would just walk, and for the most part, on an average criminal, you wouldn't need to be
tactical at the beginning either.
No, he wasn't.
He never waits for a backup. He always rushes in alone.
Well, when he rushed in as a human and he goes into that warehouse, he doesn't cover his corners at all. He's just walks in and he's just walking around willy nilly in the room. Like, he doesn't do anything to find cover at all. Like, he's just bursts into rooms. Like, that's not how you.
Dead or alive, you're playing with me.
He's basically the exact opposite of Dredd in terms of his approach to taking out a room. So, do you guys have anything else to say about RoboCop himself? Like, do you guys want to start moving into the environment? I think.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that he sustained himself from baby food.
Yeah, basically.
Yes.
Well, they mention it like that the food that he eats is not unlike baby food, and then Officer Lewis gets him baby food.
At the end
All of it.
It's baby food flavored. Wait, the other thing too, though, if we talked about the RoboCops, but I think we should also talk about the Ed 209.
Ed 209. Actually, I liked the stop motion. Like, it's a little dated, but I think it
did it well.
cool.
And do you guys remember that scene where they had the little dinosaur and it's the same? Yeah, I thought that was cool. And then they at the end, when
the dinosaur
and
the
the
cartoon
from the window, as well. His arms are a weird, super long. Where do you get these long arms from? After that? What happened?
Weirdly long.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. So, no, the thing that was weird about the Ed 209s is they make weird noises, like they growl.
Yes,
they sound like monsters.
He's there's a roar in the beginning, and then when he falls down the stairs, he's squealing like a pig.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I know that a lot of people like to shit on the Ed 209 for not being able to handle stairs, right? Which is a valid argument.
But a lot of robots now still can't do that.
But I think OCP had plans down the road to make stairs a crime. So they were probably going to outfit all of Detroit with ramps for the Ed 209s to safely patrol the streets.
Well, also, I think once they're in the streets, they wouldn't be going up and down stairs pretty regularly. Most
they'd
streets
just be fucking leveling buildings and killing a lot of innocent people.
But yeah, I think the Ed 209s were pretty cool. I mean, they're very wasteful. They wasted a ton of ammunition on a guy that was already dead, but they're pretty
dude,
cool.
You gotta be sure. You gotta be sure, dude. That guy was pointing at him in a threatening manner.
My favorite thing about that scene was that they justified it afterwards. He must not have heard the gun drop. He didn't hear the gun drop?
Back to the drawing board. Put better microphones in the Ed 209s.
Dick Jones doesn't care, and he's super upset that that other guy pitched the RoboCop thing. He's you didn't go through proper channels. It's dude, you were trying to push these on the military without having them ready. You fucked up, Dick. Yeah. So,
all right, cool. Yeah, we can move on.
Let's talk about Detroit. This Detroit is fucked up.
Not that much
gnarly.
different from Detroit.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this Detroit is definitely a hell world, to be sure, right? I mean, it
they're
seems
so
super dangerous.
cops are dying so far, they're dying crazy, and everyone's if
these cops should have gone on strike, man.
Yeah, if these cops go on strike, there's no getting the city back. The criminals will take over, and
fuck it, they can have it.
These criminals are gnarly in this one, and God, I would not want to live there.
They have a cocaine factory.
Yeah, they just have a factory
in the city.
It's not even hidden.
That's fine, I guess, and no cop should ever go there because we all saw what happened to old Murphy last time he went down there.
And then, their classic criminal, Clarence Boddicker seems to be in, he's not just, a kingpin. He's in everything. He's personally taking care of bank robberies. And
he's great. He's just great in this movie, dude.
God, Clarence Boddicker's amazing.
He's leading from the front, dude. He's really leading by example here.
Real utility man.
Yeah, you want him around. He's also quite the ladies' man in this movie. What is it that he says to the...
fit me in later.
Yeah. Oh, man, CB, dude. CB.
To the receptionist at OCP?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God. Well, CB was all business, dude. I love when he busts... My favorite line in the movie... And maybe in any movie, is when he busts into the party with that guy doing all the coke with those two chicks, and he's just bitches leave. That's it. That's it for me. Good. You can't do that in movies anymore.
That's not right.
Nope, you cannot.
So the thing that this movie's most known for is it's a satire. Like it's an action movie, but first and foremost, it was designed to be a satire. So it's very openly mocking Americans' consumerism. It's mocking like sensationalism.
You got the
like
Nukem board game, the commercial for the Nukem board game. You got all the commercials for that 6,000 SUX vehicle that's supposed to be everyone's dream car.
Yeah, and then
all of that was really cool.
And then the way their news is like, it just so casually mentioned like Santa Monica got destroyed by a laser. Santa Barbara got destroyed by a laser. It mentioned that
satellite laser.
And then it also mentioned that like some city has nukes. Like they were saying like some place was threatening to use nukes, and it was a city that had the nukes, not like a country, but an individual city has nuclear armament.
This
like
Detroit,
that's crazy.
This 1987 future movie Detroit is way more fucked up than this other RoboCop, the 2014 remake.
Which we'll get into because that one's not too gnarly, but this one, God, just between the crime. Like, the way the news is so casual about, like, just hundreds of thousands of people dying.
Everyone is in constant peril. Like, the world could go at any second. Like, at the drop of the hat.
And then
the first thing RoboCop encounters, like, out on patrol, is those creeps trying to rape that lady just in the middle of the night out on the street.
Right.
Oh, yeah, and when he shoots through the dress and shoots that guy right in the dick.
Which, by the way,
your move, creep.
Has the best acting in this entire movie. Like, that guy acted the shit of getting his dick shot out. I believed it. I believed it. I thought that it happened.
Oh!
You know the other thing that we didn't mention about the RoboCop design? So he had, like, the same tool. It's not quite an R2-D2, like, universal tool, but he had, like, the data spike. It's, like, the same thing that, like, all the bad Transformers have in the Transformer movies. Like, have you guys ever seen a port like that in any computer?
Never.
Not only have I never seen a port like that, I also didn't understand why they had a port set up for him at the precinct, and not only that, at the Omnicorp. Like, they had foreseen that he was going to need to, like, show them some info.
I don't know.
It would make sense that they would want him to be able to do that.
Standard, everything will be done with large spikes,
like 9-inch spikes
with one another.
Those are the future USBs.
Well, everyone thought before USBs we would be running around with spikes.
Right.
That's what everyone thought.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, fortunately, it's not that way.
Yeah.
Right? Things are much more compact now. But also, I mean, at the end of the movie, he's probably pretty happy to have that data spike, right? I mean, it's pretty useful for interfacing with other machines and also stabbing people to death.
In the face.
In the face.
So, do you guys have anything else to really talk about this movie before we move into the second one?
Well, we need our themes, man. We need themes.
So the themes were, I mean, like the satire, kind of the themes. Like, it's the whole point is that just mocking the 80s super consumerism and just corporate not caring.
I think, for me at least, this movie kind of, I think it was only in the 80s where you could get that R-rated, gory, violent, like the new one, the 2014 one is PG-13, right?
Yeah, it is.
And like this movie should be an R-rated movie. Like it's part of what makes it good is it is extremely violent.
The extreme aspect of it because it's making fun. So this is 1987. This is when crime in the inner cities in the United States was at its highest. This is when we first really started not the war on drugs, but like a big part of the war on drugs, and this is, when George Bush was in office, getting into the Clinton years before crime started going down. So this was like when people were actually like super afraid and worried about the country at this time period. So it's a really interesting time for this movie to come out. And, considering that it was making fun of consumerism, it's weird, like you brought it up earlier, Dustin, that this is a hard R movie that no child should be seeing. But they're making
firmly
toys
aimed at children.
Like,
I mean,
I was all about it. I was fascinated by it when I was a kid. Like, I remember the cartoon was popping and the toys were around, and I was like, "Oh man, this looks really cool."
I definitely had a RoboCop.
And then I was like, I kind of want to see that movie, and my mom was like, "No, dude, you can't see RoboCop." He is 1987, so I was like 7, 8 years old, and they're like, "No, dude, I don't want you watching this." The main guy, like RoboCop, gets brutally murdered.
Yeah, can you just imagine?
What's crazy is when Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying, can you imagine, like, 7-year-old Dustin watching that with your mom and, like, the fucking...
Oh, it would have just tore me up. Like, yeah. And then the cartoon, though, the cartoon still touches on that this happened to Alex Murphy. If you watch, I think it's on YouTube, you can watch, like, the first episode of the cartoon. And, like, they do it in a similar way where you're seeing it kind of from, like, Alex Murphy's point of view, and all these cartoon bad guys are just unleashing a hail of gunfire at you, the viewer.
Well, what's crazy is in this movie, in addition to like them just shooting the hell out of him, he also like is making puns when it's happening. So like when he shoots off his hand at point blank range with the shotgun, he's like, "Give this man a hand!
Give the man a hand!" Yeah,
and like everyone's like really like happy about this and like laughing and having a
that
good
black guy
time
laughing.
And, like,
he's like that
over like boisterous, and it's like are they really enjoying this?
That black guy is like that puppet with
Just
Jabba the Hutt, like that
you.
weird, that gremlin-looking guy.
Yeah, it's like, is this why they do crime? So for moments like this, like
everybody's laughing in this movie. That
we have to look forward to is hyena people.
That bald ginger guy laughs like crazy. Like every time he's doing, like when he's robbing that convenience store, he's laughing. He's laughing like right after, like they were getting. You know what's weird about it? They were getting chased by Murphy and Lewis. And they get into this factory, and they're like watching that TV show with the "I'd buy that for $1" thing. Like they just immediately go and start watching TV when they're being chased by the cops. Like what the hell's going on? Like their priorities are fucked up.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll bring up some more stuff when we start talking about the other one. Like that always ends up happening. But I think this is a good stopping point for this one.
Yeah. I definitely watched this movie with fresh eyes because like I never really got to do the whole. It came out in 1987. I was born in '88, so I never really. So when I watched this, at first I thought like, oh, this movie is crazy. This is bad. But then I saw the new RoboCop, and that one was fucking dog shit.
All right, so I think it's just like we should just dive into the 2014 one. This one's a weird one. Like it has a pretty stellar cast. Like it's Joel Kinnaman is like fairly unknown. Like he did this and like one.
He was
movies.
Awesome on The Killing, man.
I never actually saw The Killing. He was in House of Cards, I think the 3rd season, and then of course Suicide Squad, which is garbage.
That movie! Oh my god!
But they had Gary Oldman, Samuel L. Jackson, Jay Baruchel, which I like.
Michael
in most
Keaton.
movies. Michael Keaton.
Gary Oldman.
Like,
so hey, hang on. Here's what I have in my notes. I have Jay Baruchel. Don't like him.
See, I like
Michael Keaton.
Michael
Keaton. Like him. Gary Oldman. Like him. Robot hands for guitar scene. Cool.
Samuel L. Jackson as well.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Super annoying.
Really
basically
annoying.
Samuel L. Jackson's Bill O'Reilly in this movie.
Yeah,
I think Samuel L. Jackson is a robot.
That's what I was thinking too.
Because I don't know why he would want robots so fucking bad.
Towards the end,
if he were not a robot
What's
himself.
weird about this movie, because so it opens with this Bill O'Reilly type TV show that's hosted by Samuel L. Jackson's character. I can't remember what it's called, but it's called something like
The Novak
element.
The
The
Novak element.
The Novak experiment element.
So it starts with him, and what's really weird is he's supposed to be this like super conservative, like right wing guy, and they make this argument that every other country in the world is using robots and it works. But here in the United States, the conservatives are like the complete opposite of that argument, like universal health care, gun reform, stuff like that. Like all the people are pro those things. Like it works in every other civilized country in the world, and like Republicans and right-wing people were like, no, we can't do that here. It would never work. And it's like, well, it works everywhere else. So it's weird that like the conservative person in this movie is making an argument.
He's all about it. Like at the end of this movie, when like they still can't have robots, he calls Gary Oldman's character a motherfucker on television.
National TV.
He's super pissed.
He hates them.
Yeah, he really wanted these robots. I think he's a robot, dude. I'm telling you.
It's possible.
I had the same
But
thought
in
when he
this
was yelling
movie,
at
Well,
him.
Probable.
In this
Go ahead.
movie,
No,
go ahead,
you
Joe. So basically, in the nutshell, this one is a much more straightforward plot. Robots are the Ed 209s are basically the military police force everywhere else. They also have like smaller humanoid robots that are basically peacekeeping forces everywhere else.
Yeah,
The movie
they're all.
starts off-
Are they peacekeeping
They're
forces
supposed to
or
be.
are they
They're
just
murder
person killing
machines.
forces?
They are.
Well, at the beginning of the
Like
movie, they kill a
Samuel L.
child.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no. Samuel Jackson asked, "Why is America so robophobic?" Well, maybe it's because Ed 209's kill a kid holding a kitchen knife, and that's why America is so robophobic.
It was like a large.
I don't think it was a knife that child could have wielded to defeat Ed 209.
That's their only weakness as children.
No, probably not.
Unless that kid was very good with knives, which he may have been, and I don't know.
So this was right around the time. This was like a year and a half after Trayvon Martin, and I felt like this was probably a commentary on that. I could be wrong. I could be reading into it a little too much, but I don't know. But basically, in a nutshell, like they're in like Iraq or Iran or something like that, and Jackie Early Healy, whatever his name is, he's plays Rorschach in Watchmen, and he's like the new Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. I just in my notes, I just referred to him as ugly dude / ugly kid from Bad News.
I think his name was Maddox.
Oh, that's right. He is in Bad News.
He plays the ugly kid.
Yeah, he's the ugly kid with a motorcycle.
So he is like the human controller of the robots, and like he cuts the news feed when they kill the child, and it cuts to like Alex Murphy and his partner are, I guess basically he's an undercover cop. They find out that these guys are gonna have guns, and he goes to the police department. He thinks these two cops are shady, which they are. And he has like a little confrontation with these two like dirty cops, and then he goes back out and goes back to his house. Like basically, they already had this raid that went bad, and his partner got shot. So he goes home. There's his
partner whose name is Lewis.
Whose name is Lewis,
but
Jack.
It's Omar from The Wire.
From The Wire. Yeah, I had that written down too.
Jack Lewis.
All my notes refer to him as Omar from The Wire. So he goes and visits him. Like he got shot, but he's fine. And it cuts to like a Senate hearing with Michael Keaton trying to say that like robots are good, and there's like this act that makes robots illegal in the United States. And then they decide to build a Robocop. They did like focus groups, and it turns out like a human cop robot hybrid.
That's what people
does
love.
really
That's
well
what
in
the
focus
people
groups. So they start doing like they have a scene kind of towards the beginning where they start like looking at all these like former cops and Navy SEALs and stuff like, and they mention that you have to be very in control of your emotions, and you have to be mentally stable because like you'll reject the robo parts. And that goes into the scene that you mentioned earlier with the robotic hands playing the guitar, which is a really cool scene. And then the guy starts getting choked up because he hasn't been able to play the guitar, and then his hands kind of go haywire. And they're like, "You can't be emotional." And he's like,
"Stop being a bitch.
Music. What the fuck's the point? Like, I can't.
I need to be emotional."
Yeah, but then I think that like Gary Oldman is kind of like he's a good doctor.
He's a good man initially.
It looks like he's trying to go back and like reevaluate his work.
Initially, I think so. I think he has some moments in the middle of the movie where he's not such a good guy.
That is true.
He's under a lot of pressure, dude.
So basically, in a nutshell,
we don't understand.
Like he's under a lot of pressure. Michael Keaton. This is my favorite line that Michael Keaton had in the movie was "Get your ass back to China and get it fixed."
Yeah. So. They ultimately, Alex Murphy gets like a car bomb that blows him up, and he like loses an eye, he loses a leg, he loses an arm, he severs his spine.
Which even with all that is still not as horrifying as a hail of gunfire.
Still looks really good.
So he survives.
Like that explosion did not touch his face. Like
no,
you
so
consider it like he fucking.
Well, his face is explosion proof. That's why they selected him.
He would have been better than like Christopher Reeve's life. Like he would only been
paralyzed
paralyzed
from
the waist down. Like he could have.
Oh God. Well, I guess technically that's better.
Yeah. So anyway, so basically, like his wife signs him up to be a RoboCop, and he has this like. It flashes forward like 3 months later, and it looks like he's at like this party and he's having a great time, and then they take him out of this like Matrix simulation.
And actually, I found this scene to be very upsetting. Like,
it's
way
very
more
upsetting. So it's not upset. I think it was cool. It makes sense to give because in this version he is more human. We'll get into it a little bit, but he's basically a human with a robotic body. Like it's his brain, it's his head and stuff like that.
And for some reason, his lungs.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is they wake him up,
which makes no sense.
And they try to explain to him what happens. They let him out, and he like freaks the fuck out, which makes sense.
Dude, I would think that shit was cool.
No. And this is the part. This is the best acting in the movie, right? Like the freak out is the best. Where he's like, "Holy Christ, there's nothing left."
Well, he's
like, just
not even
face.
at that point yet. Like he runs away. They shut him down because he gets too far. They bring him back and they try to like talk him down, and then he's like, "Show me what's left." and they open him up, and he's got a hand.
One hand.
Like one hand, not even
attached.
Hand.
It's just a hand.
But I like, I mean, he asked them to kill him. He says, end this nightmare.
This is a nightmare. He's got his lungs, his heart, his head, and a hand, and that's it.
And I love it. Like, I think Joel Kinnaman acted this scene very well. Like, I love the line where he says, I don't want to see myself like this again, ever. The same goes for my family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe that's the best scene in the movie.
And then he has that Skype call with his wife, and he's like, I don't want our son to see me like this. Like, this is disgusting.
Well, he is a terrifying... I mean, he asks... the first thing he asks him is, take this off me. Like, when he takes his first steps, and they have to explain,
it's
like,
not
this
a
is
suit.
you. Like, we can't take this off you.
And the thing that's crazy, and like, God, that would be the most traumatic thing in the world to see, that you are just, like, they don't let
That's
you
why
see...
I'm saying, like, this is worse. Like, keeping your memories and knowing who you are is worse. Like, at least in the other one, like,
crazy.
he's being reborn as a robot. He knows nothing else.
Except the
like,
law.
you have people who have, like, where they're awake in surgeries, and it's like the most traumatic thing. Like, people like kill themselves over it, and like to see yourself as just lungs, heart, and a head would be. There's no coming back from that. Like, you're not a normal person after that. So
I mean, I don't know, man. I
the most stable person in the world.
Robocop.
Give me that robot body. Seemed pretty sweet. Yeah.
Give me that robot.
Well, so the
body.
thing that's great. Well, not necessarily, because later on, like, he has to like come back to a station. Like
But I like this station. I like that they explain the chair more in this movie. Like, it filters his blood, it delivers the nourishment, antibiotics.
He
doesn't eat baby food.
All his hormones.
And I eat here. Like, it seems like just go back to your apartment. That's all you gotta do, really.
Basically,
After a hard day of Robocopping, I like to return to my couch. Yeah, this Robocop could definitely do some endorsements for like whiskey and stuff. After a hard day of Robocopping, I like to relax in my chair and enjoy a nice bullet ride.
So what I did really like the design, not the design of the, like, when he first started, he had a suit very reminiscent of the original 1987, bulky silver costume.
Yeah.
I actually thought looked pretty cool. But I did like how, because he's still a human and he still has a brain, like, when he goes in this chair, they pump him full of hormones and stuff like that. And because he had that freak out,
give me the hormones.
Gary Oldman's character was like, give him some antidepressants.
This chair situation's getting sweeter and sweeter the more I'm thinking about it.
Yeah,
I don't want it now. I don't even need a robot body. Fuck it, I don't need this
It's
body.
a package deal, Joe. Gotta have a robot body for the chair.
So let's get back. So basically, in a nutshell, they let him see his family briefly. Then they go and have the public unveiling. Oh no! Before they have that, like, he has a simulation against a robot where he comes in like 5.5 seconds slower than the robot, and he tries to
sucks compared to
everything.
robots.
So what they do is Michael Keaton basically tells him, "Fix it," like you said. So they basically
get your ass back to China and fix it.
I don't care what you do.
They tweak his brain and put like more robotic chips in it, and basically make it where the robot software does all the stuff, but it's wired to the part of the brain that makes Alex Murphy think he's doing it. So Keaton has this line where they're like, but it's a robot doing it. He's like, no, it's a robot that thinks it's Alex Murphy. So in my book, that's legal, which...
Yeah, it's his book of laws.
Oh. Yeah, no, well, it's his book, man. I mean, he's running the company, and it's his book, and that's the law. Yeah.
And then he goes and does the little scene where he's in the warehouse, and he takes on like 30 of the robots, and then he tases the guy from Bad News Bears / Rorschach, and he's just kind of a dick to him. And that guy's a dick to him.
Tin Man, just calls him Tin Man the whole time.
He keeps calling him Tin Man, and then he does say, like, in the first simulation when he doesn't beat the robot, he says, I wouldn't buy that for $1. So, a little tie back to the original. He ends up doing really well. They have a public unveiling in Detroit, but right before they super dope him up. So basically they turn off his emotions. So he's basically a robot. So that's what's interesting about this one. They turn him to like a human robot. He ends up arresting a bunch of people. He's really cool. And then he starts remembering his murder. So he solves his murder. And once he starts solving his murder, Michael Keaton's character flips out because the wife is also trying to solve the murder and everything. So they're like, oh, they're going to tell the world what's going on. So they decide to kill him. And then they have like the big showdown, and he fights a bunch of Ed 209s. And then they have the big showdown on the roof. So
yada yada yada.
Yeah, so that's basically the movie. So I guess we can. We've already kind of talked about RoboCop, but we can go into a little bit more. Like he had multiple suits.
Wait, but before we do that, I would just like to do. I would just like to say that the guy that I have been calling the ugly dude / the ugly kid from Bad News Bears, his name is Jackie Earl Haley, and I really like him. I think he is a really, really good actor, and I want to apologize and just, Jackie Earl Haley, if you ever listen to this podcast, like, I said some things, and I'm sorry. You said some things. I think we're better friends for it now. I think I sold him short, and I don't want to be on record as doing that to Jackie Earl.
Very humble.
Well, I was kind of I said some things that I thought were funny at the time, but they were just mean and stupid.
RoboCop, basically, we went into it a lot. He's more human, and then they turn him into a robot by giving a bunch of like serotonin and dopamine to like turn off his emotions. So I thought that was an interesting twist where he was basically a human in a robot's body versus a robot with a human face. And I really like how they handled that. And I think we'll go into more in the themes, but I think that was one of the other themes of this movie.
I really thought that this RoboCop looked way cooler in silver.
Yeah,
like the decision to make him black and tactical, like that was the buzzword there. I thought it didn't pay off at all. I thought it looked way cooler in silver. And then they showed, like, on the screen, like, an armored version of that RoboCop armor, which was a nod to the original RoboCop. So
yeah, I actually really liked the original costume before they got the upgrades. I do like I did like the combat. I did think it made more sense where he would, like...
I liked that he had two guns.
Really cool spins.
Make him ambidextrous. He's a fucking robot. You could totally make him use a gun in each hand as well as each other.
There's a lot of things they did really well, and I liked how he, like, tied into, like, the drones and the security cameras and the way he...
all of the internet, all of the records of like, the guy's like, I got a wife and kids. Like, your wife died 2 months ago or whatever. Like, he knew everything. Yeah. He was kind of like omnipresent in that way. It was really scary.
I think the Robocopping in this movie is actually better.
He's a better
cop.
He is a better cop.
He actually arrests no one.
He's not a film. Yeah, go ahead.
He doesn't actually arrest. He just beats people up and leaves them.
He just shoots
exactly. People. Well, you find out 57 minutes in the movie he's not in arrest mode.
The only person he arrests is Bodeker.
So that that was simple fix. But in 2014, this RoboCop,
that was an oversight on their part.
So,
definitely on the ball. He actually arrested people.
Well, and he's doing more like detective work. Like, he's trying to solve his own murder. And I did like the scene. It was a hokey line, but they're what is this, good cop, bad cop? It's like, no, it's bad cop, RoboCop.
Yeah. And so it was pretty cool. Like, this one had a little bit more story, and it turned out like his captain was dirty too. So it's like everybody.
Like the chief of police was dirty in this one.
Yeah. So there was a lot of pretty interesting.
Like, you
things.
tried to kill me twice.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting is, while I will get into it a little bit more, like, I do like the original movie better, but I do think this RoboCop was better. The design wasn't as cool looking as the original, but
he
was more of a cop. He was better at copping. I don't think he was better at robo.
Bring back the 2014 cast and just do a complete, total shot, scene for scene remake of the 1987 with updated graphics.
I would be cool with that, actually.
If they did it as gory, I think it would be amazing.
No, I don't think. I think if you took the goriness from the original and put that in this one, it would have been a lot better. I think this one was watered down, and they couldn't please everybody. So let's get back on it real quick. So basically,
he's just better.
Man, I forgot what I was.
He's
saying,
a better cop.
It wasn't for the fans of the original, and it wasn't. I think if the original RoboCop was never a movie, and this just was a new thing that came out in 2014, I think it would have been much better received. But because it was a remake of RoboCop and it was nothing like RoboCop, it just was poorly received. The other problem that this movie had, it was marketed by Sony. It was distributed by Sony. And I remember after I saw this movie in theaters, and one of the big things I hated about it is, if you watch the trailers for this movie, every action beat was in the trailers. Like, you knew exactly what was going to happen. The entire plot. And Sony's having that same problem right now with. They did it with Amazing Spider-Man 2. They showed over almost 40 minutes of footage before that movie came out. They did it with this new Amazing the Spider-Man Homecoming between the two trailers that have come out. you basically know the entire plot of this movie. Like, Sony is terrible at marketing their movies and making it where you don't know everything that's happening in the movie. So that kind of bothered me. But I think we should get back to maybe let's talk about Detroit now, because they're two drastically different.
Well, this Detroit seemed like a place where one could raise a family, and have a good life.
It seemed like a modern world. Like it had like a crime boss, but like it didn't seem too different than what we're doing now.
Clarence Boddicker crime boss.
There was no mutants.
It didn't seem that fucked up. There was like a lack of mutants.
Yep.
Yes.
Like no one turns into a howling mutant in this movie.
Oh, and
that
they
was
get
gross,
splattered
man.
by a car. Help me!
Yeah, like, I don't know why turning into a mutant
liquefied.
makes you howl like a dog, but that seemed like a horrible fate for that poor guy.
Just get splattered, liquefied.
And I think that was just 80s mutant shit, man. Like, I think, you know, there was a lot of that. Like, man, all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff, like, everything that was happening then. There was none of that.
But on the Detroit thing, just for Detroit, like, just the theme of
Yeah.
the movie, it goes along with that, too, because, I mean, in the original movie, they're trying to level Detroit. They're trying to get rid of Detroit and build Delta City.
That
Whereas in this one, they're
city.
trying to enforce the law and save Detroit, make a new peaceful Detroit.
Well, and the other thing is that's the satire in this one.
Yeah.
The satire in this one is more about like the crazy news,
or big corporations covering up news stories.
It's almost more a satire of the media than of the world.
I agree, exactly. And then I'd say the other thing is that kind of the theme is, should robots be able to take a life, and is it okay for, like, what is the definition of a human? Is Alex Murphy still a human? And like, it's safe to assume that
give me that chair.
Technology
Give me that chair.
will probably be a thing in the next 100 years.
Yeah.
Robocops,
just law enforcement.
Well, not necessarily Robocops, but being
Cyborgs.
able to like put cyborgs.
I mean, we're already getting advancing
I got some
prosthetics, right? Like.
Exactly, and like we do have pretty good prosthetics. Like, it's not unreasonable to think that this is something that could happen. So I think that was another big thing. Like, what makes a human a human? We do have drones now. We do have artificial intelligence is getting better and better. Like, is it okay to have a robot take a life? Like, can they make that decision? So I thought that was an interesting thing to talk on, or talk about.
Like, I mean, you're getting into Skynets and Terminators and stuff now, though. I mean, we're treading on dangerous territory here.
So, was there anything else you guys want to talk about on this one before we move on? I guess we should talk about that final scene. Like, I thought the final scene was pretty cool when he takes on a couple Ed 209s, and then Omar from The Wire drives a Jeep into a building to take one out and save him, because he gets fucked up. Like, he gets a Ed 209 that falls on him, and he shoots off his own like robot arm so he could get out. It was pretty cool. This one was a little bit different, and at the end, they had the old man had to fire Dick Jones so that way Robocop could like shoot him and throw him out a window. In this one, his human brain was able to overcome the
red
directive. It wasn't
asset.
a directive. They had those little bracelets, the red asset, and he was able to shoot Michael Keaton. Then he got his silver armor back, which was
Oh, no. I actually have a note here. Gary Oldman. My note says, damn, Gary Oldman is a way better actor than anybody else in this movie.
I love Gary Oldman, man.
He is acting circles around these
of all time.
clowns.
So I think we're pretty much done. So I saw this movie in theaters, and I remember thinking it was coming out of the theater going meh, because I felt like I saw everything in the trailer. Watching it this second time around, I actually liked it better.
Scene for scene
was it a perfect
remake.
movie?
Scene for
No.
scene with the same
I do
cast.
agree that maybe doing a more faithful or maybe a rated R.
Yeah, I agree
movie
with you
would've
on
been
that
better.
point. Like,
But do you guys have any?
I call this a remake that I did not want and did not.
It's more of a
ask for.
reboot, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if like I saw it in theaters also, and I was disappointed when I came out because I went in thinking old RoboCop. I want this to be amazing and bloody and great,
Well,
but
it did look
It
cool,
also
just
looked
wasn't
like it was
cool.
going to be cool, right?
One
Like,
big
I
note,
felt a little bit misled.
One big
Like,
note
it
that I
looked like
got
it might
from
be
Yeah.
from this
but
one, I
didn't
think I
want
wrote
it
this
or
note
ask
down
for it.
probably about 15 minutes
I
in.
liked it better this
was
time.
too much acting. Like, just way too much.
There's far too much acting.
there's
in this
just a
movie.
lot more emotion
So-
in this one.
I'm gonna do something
Oh,
that
hell
we did
yeah.
in the Point Break episode and just demonstrate another reason why 80s movies
Are we
are
about
way
to get a
better,
supercut?
Oh man,
We're about
Oh
to get a
hell yes!
supercut.
Lay it on me.
All right.
Buy that for $1. You burnt the fucking money! Can you fly, Bobby? Any special message for all the kids watching at home. Stay out of trouble.
You a good cop? Hot shot? Sure you are. Why, you gotta be some kind of great cop. Come in here all by yourself. I got the muscle to shove enough of this factory so far up your stupid wop ass that you'll shit snow for a year.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Guns.
Clarence Bodiger, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent.
Fuck you. Cobra assault cannon, state of the art. Bang, bang.
Your move, creep.
Bitches leave.
Oh yeah.
Bitches leave.
Bitches leave.
Man.
Yeah, I mean,
That was so satisfying.
I had to end it on "Bitches Leave." That's my favorite line from the movie. Dustin and
It's
I,
a horrible
every once in a while,
thing
will
to
send
say,
memes.
but I
We
would
send each
I
other
would
memes
wear it
about
on a
it.
T-shirt. And that's
As long
terrible.
as you have CB's face on it, it's fine.
No, I think
You have
just
to have his
a
face on
black
it.
T-shirt with white letters that says "bitches."
No, I
leave.
think you have to have context on it so you don't look like super
Bitches
sexist. That's 80s, early 90s movies are great for the one-liners. This really didn't have any one-liners in it. So with that being said, I think we're good on the movies.
Are we saying this should have
unless
been
you guys have
remade?
any-
What's our verdict here?
I'm gonna say
I'm
no.
saying no. Hard no.
No. Oh, I'm kind of I'm kind of torn because RoboCop was a dying franchise. So number 2 was an okay movie.
I'm saying if
number
we had
3 was
if
not
we had
good.
just put Dr. Baby JJ in charge of this entire operation, I think it would have been pretty good.
If they did a shot-for-shot remake,
So, all right. So we're running at almost an hour. So let's we're
Our
gonna have to
listeners
get
are
through
so
this
fucking
pretty
lucky.
quick. So yeah. So we didn't have we had a ton of emails and tweets and stuff, but it was all about Power
Well, let's
Rangers.
hear it. Whatever. What do we got?
So
dude, I love the Power Rangers.
so just a lot of people asking what we thought about Power Rangers if we're going to do an episode, and we were originally going to do an episode on Power Rangers, but we replaced it with, so far, our most popular episode. We've got 20 reviews on iTunes, and almost all of them talk about the Point Break
Magnum
episode,
opus.
so I'm glad we
Magnum
kind of
opus. I said it before. I'll
we
say it
did
again.
that, but we decided not to cover Power Rangers for a couple reasons. One, I don't know if Dustin's mentioned his age on this podcast ever.
I'm 4,000
He
years
has
old.
A lot.
Yeah, he's a 4,000-year-old
But
wizard.
he didn't he didn't watch Power Rangers as a kid. Xavier was
I'll throw this
homeschooled,
out
so
there.
he didn't
I'll
watch.
throw this out there. If anybody wants to, if we get enough backers on our Patreon, I'll watch all the goddamn Power Rangers, and I'll fucking give you guys a schooling on Power Rangers.
They're on Netflix.
So basically, in a nutshell,
You don't want me to
There
get
is a
into
Power
Power
Rangers
Rangers.
movie.
You guys, you don't want this.
but we mentioned a while ago when somebody asked us about chips that we weren't going to be covering TV shows because it's too hard to get a good conversation going. Like, how many episodes do we watch? Which seasons? Like, we're never going to please everybody if we do a TV show. And while there was a Power Rangers movie, that movie only made sense if you've seen the TV show and followed it, because it already had a bunch of established characters and villains, and it just didn't make sense for us to do it as an episode. I might just, as a bonus episode, maybe do like a 5-minute mini review and just have that as a bonus.
The only
episode
thing
on
I know
either
about
this
the Power
one.
Rangers is that the only Ranger I give a good goddamn about is the Green Ranger.
later known as the
Green
White
Ranger's
Green Ranger and White
badass
Ranger.
as hell.
So,
Bad as hell.
Anyway,
badass as
that's
hell,
pretty
dog.
much it. We did have
Yeah, that's why he's my
we did
favorite
have
Ranger.
one other email from Yellow Koala. So basically, in a nutshell, what it was, out of any of the remakes that had been canceled, are there any that were most disappointed? So I had to do a little bit of research. That's the advantage that I have over you guys, is that I get the questions
Well, I
before you
wouldn't
guys.
You have more time.
I researched a little bit and tried to find all the remake movies that have been canceled, and a lot of them have already been picked up again. And then I found the treasure trove of DC characters that were supposed to be rebooted that weren't. I think that I'm upset that we did not get the Tim Burton, Nick Cage Superman movie. I think with how shitty these DC movies have been lately, I think that would be just a fucking fun movie to watch, because Nick Cage is crazy, and partnering him up with Tim Burton, I think that's something I would want to watch. That being said, we'll move into the news really quick. There wasn't a lot of stories. The big one, there was a little bit of controversy over the Spider-Man trailer from last week. There was a new interview where basically a producer said exactly how many scenes Robert Downey Jr. is in. He spoiled the ending of the movie, like he said where the final fight was going to be, and there's little clips of the final fight. So that was a little weird. I'm kind of tired of I'm kind of tired of not being able to go to a movie and be surprised now. Like, every movie trailer spoils, like, the ending of the movie. Like, they did it with Terminator Genesis. They did it with not Justice League, but Batman versus Superman ruining Doomsday. Like, I'm tired of trailers spoiling the movie. Like, I want to tease, but I don't want everything.
I kind of stopped giving a damn about that Spider-Man movie once I watched that new Thor trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Dude, that movie's going to be rad. Like, you got Taika Waititi.
Yeah,
I'm
excited.
It's going to be funny. It's going to be cool. You got Led Zeppelin in the trailer. I don't know. I loved everything about that trailer. I was way more excited about it than I had been for months now.
And then the only other story that I have, and I'm not super impressed with it, but I'm just going to throw it. I've got a couple real quick ones. So, D&D, or Dungeons and Dragons, for people who don't know what D&D is, was a really shitty movie that came out in like 98, 99. But they've been talking about doing a remake with Warner Brothers for a while. But I can't remember.
Joe Manganiello. He was in the Pee-wee movie on Netflix. He was awesome in that.
He's going to be Deathstroke in the Batman movie. He is a celebrity. He loves D&D. Like, there's a celebrity D&D like podcast, and he's on it often, and like they just did like a TV show with him, and so he's actually going to be co-writing this movie and possibly starring in a Dungeons and Dragons remake. So
what a guy!
That could be pretty cool.
What a guy!
And the other one was Jumanji. There was some news with Jumanji.
That's a great game.
Basically, the Jumanji movie is, instead of having the board game come to life, it's actually going to be a video game, and the teenagers playing it are going to be like transported into the avatars and
I heard this.
Be in the
I heard
game.
this, and I did not like that.
That's fine.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of it.
I don't like it either, and they made a big deal about it when they released like an image a couple months ago with like Karen Gillan, and like she's wearing short shorts and exposed midriff, and everyone's like, "Why is this so sexist?" And they're like, "Oh, when you guys see the movie, it'll make sense," and it's because she's a video game character, kind of like Tomb Raider. So I don't know how I feel about that. And then the last one was G.I. Joe is getting rebooted. Again, well, it's not again. It's only been like the two movies. But they kind of tried to do a soft reboot when they got rid of Channing Tatum and brought The Rock in, but then Channing Tatum blew up because of Magic Mike. So then they tried to like kind of have him in the movie without having him in the movie by having him the first 15 minutes then get killed. But they want to make it a more family-friendly movie, and then they want to like tie in more Hasbro franchises. So they want to bring in like GoBots or Microbots, and they want to bring in
Microbots or
like
Microman. What do you know what it is?
Microbot. Let me see. I've got it written somewhere.
Because I know Hasbro acquired Microman or Micronauts.
So they were talking about Micronauts, ROM, Visionaries, and
so
Mats.
Micronauts is definitely what will age me as compared to you guys, because Micronauts and Microman toys are fucking cool. And you guys probably don't know what the hell they are.
They want to build like an MCU kind of universe with all these Hasbro properties, and they want to make it not kid friendly, but more aimed at like families. And I'm kind of on board with that because the first two G.I. Joe movies, like just like this newer RoboCop movie, they couldn't figure out what it wanted to do. Like, it had some cool action scenes, but it also had like slapsticky humor with one of the Wayans brothers. Like, it tried to please everybody. Like, just
dude, I don't give a damn.
That.
Like, if you're gonna make movies that are 2-hour toy commercials, like, at least make them good. Like, Lego's got it down. Lego makes 2-hour movies that are commercials for Legos, and I love
amazing.
Them.
Yeah,
and I love Legos.
Amazing movies.
So that's the news. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MDXpods. You can look at our website at MDXpods.com. We're on Facebook.com/MDXpods. And a big shout out to Alexander. I don't know his last name. It's just Alexander. He's our second patron on Patreon. Thank you so much. He's donating a little bit every month, so we really appreciate it.
Definitely appreciate it, guys. Get on that Patreon. Give
Thank
generously.
You, Alex.
Give generously. It's good for the soul. It's good for your salvation. Dig deep. Give generously. Give what you can. If we can do anything to redeem your souls, we will.
And if you can't, we understand that not everyone can do that. Please like and share our content. Leave a review on iTunes. We've got 20-plus reviews right now, and they're all 5 stars, so we're doing really well on iTunes. So thank you guys so much for the love and support there. Share your stuff. Share our stuff on Twitter, Facebook. Tell your friends about it. If you got a friend who's into movies, let them know about it. That's if you guys can't.
Yeah. Get your rich friends.
Talk to your rich friends. Get your rich friends to give some money.
Talk to your rich friends.
I'm trying to have parties
that's what I'm trying to do. I just don't have any of those.
Like,
hit me up. Let me know what's going on.
I don't have anything else. Double D, Joe, thank you guys so much for coming on. I had a blast talking to you guys. I miss you guys, and it was really nice spending an hour or so talking to you guys. Thank you so much for stepping up.
Yeah, likewise, Mike. Thank you, man.
Family.
It's always fun to talk about RoboCop and my childhood.
Mike. I miss you too.
All right, guys, that's episode 6. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
Yeah.